Welcome back to the Titanium Hangar. This is Mike, and I'm coming at you with a different kind of video for a different kind of day. I am going to compile a list of the top 10 most obscure characters from the G1 US Transformers line. The toy line, the 2 line, if it appeared in a toy, or if it appeared in a cartoon, that continuity, we're looking for that as a masterpiece representation in third party. So get your pens and papers ready so that you can submit your top 10 list in my comments. Alright, so here's the ground rules on this fun video. I'm going to go ahead and show you my top 10 list. And that should not sway you on yours. You put your top 10 list, and it has to be from the US cartoon season 1, 2, 3, or 4, and or the movie, or it was a toy that was made in the US G1 era. And I'm going to compile all this data and then make a master list, and we'll vote on ranking in a poll which one is the number one, which was the worst of those top 10 lists. It's a lot of fun. Sounds like a lot of work. Don't worry, just put your top 10 list down there, and let's get right into mine. By the way, after I'm done with my top 10 list, I'm going to throw like 30 or 40 other characters out there just to stimulate your mind and make you think about what else hasn't really been made in the Masterpiece third party. By the way, this is not what Takara is going to make, because Takara is a lot trickier because they won't make obscure characters. We're looking at obscure. First on my list is Punch and Counterpunch. You've heard me talk about this a lot, but I really think the Punch Counterpunch is one of the most creative and exciting figures that was made in the G1 time frame, in the G1 era. I would like to see like an X-Transbots or Unique Toys or an MMC make this, and I'd like 2 or 3 companies make this figure, make this character, simply because I would like to have 2 of these. And if X-Transbots announced tomorrow they're going to make it, and then I would pre-order 2. So I could have one in Autobot, one in Decepticon, and if another company made one, I would buy theirs, check it out, and if I liked it, sell off one of my extra Transbots, or so on. I want 2 of these. Multiple companies can make it. I think multiple companies would be successful. This would be top of my list. Next on my list is the Sharkticon, or Gnaw, and I think this would sell as a true builder, an army builder, and guess what? We've seen third party make this, but we've not seen any third party make this in an actual true masterpiece. They've been chug-sized, slightly above chug-sized, not masterpiece. You know, the sad thing is that my most recent video review of a Gnaw figure is Cyberverse. Come on. We can't get this in a masterpiece, third party. We can't get an obscure character. I'd like to see it. So next on my list is Topspin and Twin Twist. Now the thing is that they're 2 different figures, 2 different characters that would share molding pieces, and it's kind of a no-brainer. I think that in the G1 continuity, these figures are not the most sought after. They're not the greatest. They're not the most exciting. But if Masterpiece made it in a Masterpiece scale with Masterpiece everything, aesthetic, these would kill it. By the way, you're going to start hearing me praise Hasbro because Hasbro's made these. Hasbro has made the best versions of these ever. And yes, there's a third party of these. They are not Masterpiece. They're Chug. They're smaller than Hasbro's Deluxe. Therefore, they're not Masterpiece. I own them, by the way, and yes, I can say they're smaller than Hasbro's Deluxe. Hasbro's done the best job. I would love to see these made true Masterpiece. Next up on my list is Wingspan and Pounce. And again, Hasbro has made these, and Hasbro has done a really good job with these. And I want to say that this is one of the favorite toys I had as a kid. And if I were to get this, if they were to make a Wingspan and a Pounce in the Masterpiece line, I would do 2 separate reviews, obviously, because they're 2 separate figures. These are the clones. And by the way, I like the Decepticon clones, not the Autobot clones. That's a personal preference. Yours may vary. And yes, Hasbro recently did both of these. Next up on my list is the Omnibots. Now, I had these Omnibots as a kid, and I gotta say that out of all of those, the one I liked the most was the one they call Overdrive, and it's a Ferrari, and I kept getting a Ferrari mixed up with Sideswipe, a Lamborghini as a kid. I mean, whatever. But I have this G1 mold, but look at all of the amazing stuff that you could do with this figure. Like, a Masterpiece figure of this would be awesome. Not only would we have some sort of obscurity, we would have some sort of a G1 connection to the toy, which it wasn't really in the show, but we would also have so many different features that would be expected out of this. Yeah, Trex has some of them, some similarities there, but wouldn't this be awesome? Next up we have Broadside, and on my list, I think Broadside would be a cool triple changer. First of all, I haven't seen a good representation of him from Hasbro yet. Hasbro tried. It was okay. It was okay, and it was a Voyager size. But I would love to see what Masterpiece could do with technology, with the way we're going, with the aesthetic. I don't know this character for anything other than the fact that I felt like this was one of the sorriest G1 toys, and I would love to see it turn into one of the greatest Masterpiece figures, and triple changers are cool. Next up, I want to talk about Misfire, and I want to shout out tfwiki.net is awesome. So if you want more detailed information about any of the figures that show with a picture of tfwiki.net, check them out. There's so much more information than I'm going to provide in this video. But I want to say that this Misfire figure has been made by Hasbro and is a great figure by Hasbro. So much that made me seek out the G1 version, and now I want a Masterpiece version of it. I think that, well, pretty much any of these old school jets would make an amazing Masterpiece figure. And seeing it also as how this figure looks good in both modes from G1, and the transformation gives it some articulation, I think that I just love to see this as an obscure Masterpiece figure. Next on my list is Trigger Happy, and another Headmaster, which was really a Target Master in the G1, made as the Titan Returns version. And I really commend Hasbro. That's one of the most praised Titan Returns figures made. Everybody loved that unanimously. I've never heard anybody not like it. My kids love it, and the G1 toy is cool, but a Masterpiece version of this is super next level. Would love to see it. And by the way, anything with a Target Master I think is kind of fun in the G1 realm, even if it's this obscure. Next on my list is Roadbuster, and Roadbuster is the figure that I have to say is one of my favorite figures that never saw screen time, or I missed it. And I had this figure as a kid. I played with it so much. As an adult, I'm looking and like, I don't remember having all those parts. I got mine brand new. I don't remember it having all those little weapons and parts and pieces, but it does have it. Hasbro has made this figure also. I don't think the Hasbro version is great. I think it's aight. I don't think it's great. What could Masterpiece do with this? And I think we had a Masterpiece one that's still barely cracks the chug size. We want the third party made a chug one. Third party needs to make a Masterpiece. Next up on the list is Scorponok. We don't have a Masterpiece Scorponok that transforms and is the right size. What is the right size? Well, it needs to be 4 foot tall. I don't know. I mean, he did go head to head with Fortress Maximus. But I think if they made a Scorponok that was about the size of Omega Supreme, I think it would pass and it would work. But the last one they made that I saw was way too small, nowhere near Omega Supreme size. And it just, to me, for the price, it wasn't worth it. They did make a $500 or $600 non-transformable version, which looks really cool, but the fact that it doesn't transform, it's not really a transformer. And everybody is holding their breath and hoping that Hasbro puts out this in the Titans line. If they do, and it's 24 inches, it would satisfy that itch. But what could third party do? So that's my list. Now we're entering into Spark Your Imagination Zone. Take you down the memory lane zone. Run about and run amok. I hear this thrown around a lot. I have no interest in these figures whatsoever. If they get made, I don't know if they would sell, which is probably why iGear never made them, or whoever threw out a picture or a render that they were working on it. So next up is a Whirl from the G1, and yes, Whirl was made in the G1 line. A Masterpiece Whirl would be awesome. I think I saw a third party make something similar, but not true to Masterpiece scale. And of course, we could make the second generation of Insecticons, which are much bigger and more colorful. And by the way, I had most of these as a kid, and I think I have every one of these now. But would that be something Fans Toys would want to take on? Since everybody wants the Fans Toys Insecticons? I think they got enough on the plate with their 23 figures on their docket right now. But we have a Barrage, Venom, Ransack, all those great ones. So what about the Duocons with Battletrap and Flywheel? And I have to say, Hasbro did a great job with these guys. In fact, I had these, and I thought they sucked because I had the G1s. And when Hasbro remade them most recently, I loved them. My kids love them. It's just a great figure concept that could not be realized very well, or just wasn't in the G1 line. But in the Masterpiece line, they'd be badass. Next up are the Monster Bots, which I don't have much of a connection or tie to any of these Monster Bots. I have some of them, but not all of them. But I want to say we have in here Double Cross, Gratusk, and Repugnus. And Hasbro's made a couple of these. Maybe they've made them all. Who knows? And yeah, I think they've made them all. Because I think I have them all. They weren't all made the same scale, though. But in a Masterpiece line, wouldn't they be cool? Would they sell? So continuing the Headmasters, we have Horrible, Hosehead, and Nightbeat. All of which are figures that I didn't think were done very well in G1. I don't know how big of a following they have. But hey, we're talking about obscure, so here they are. And don't forget about Siren and Squeeze Play, or Squeeze Play and Siren. And I don't think I had either one of these as a kid. I may have one of them in my collection, but very interesting. Maybe they'd be a lot of fun at Masterpiece. Who knows? So next, getting into Power Master Love and Action and Fun, we have the Darkwing and Dreadwing, which both actually combine, and that would probably be something that KFC would do. I would think that's their realm, but this looks pretty cool. These figures were already cool looking in G1, but in Masterpiece, they'd be awesome. Next up, we have Double Dealer, which is an interesting figure that I actually never had, and I don't know, would that make a great version of a Masterpiece figure? And we have Getaway, Joyride, and Slapdash. They're obscure. Would they sell if they were made in a Masterpiece? So next, let's move into Pretenders. Now, I did not get into Pretenders back in the day. I have a handful now, simply because when I collected G1, they seemed to show up in a few of my lots, and I thought that some of the things Pretenders did were cool. The fact that you could get some different figures, the different idea, I thought it was okay. But I was kind of confused by how they can be smaller than humans. And I know that there's some continuities outside that, you know, I don't really follow all that. Would you want it? That's the question. I heard a couple people in my comments talk about Pretenders, saying they might kind of want Pretenders, and, you know, that's interesting. If so, why? And how would it look in a Masterpiece line? Next up, we have Quick Switch, which is kind of like Six Shot. Changes into 6 different modes. Pretty cool. But then again, do any of the modes get pulled off very well? I never had this figure, so I really don't know. But could Masterpiece make all modes look good? Would Fan Switch take this on? Rounding out the Target Masters, we have Crosshairs, Landfill, Needle Nose, all of which might be great. I know that we are getting the Crosshairs in the Siege line, but we want Masterpiece, don't we? Third party. Next up, we have Needle Nose, Point Blank, and Quick Mix. And I gotta say that some of these really weren't the greatest figures to be made in G1. What would Masterpiece do with them? So we've got Sure Shot and Scoop, and I know Scoop was made in the Generations line many years back, and I thought that was pretty cool that they would make an obscure character in Hasbro. And that was in the early days when Hasbro was making obscure, but would third-party Masterpiece make this obscure character? And lastly, I've got a Slug Slinger and a Spinister. I want to point out that my list and all of this is not completely inclusive. If you have a character in this show, a toy made in G1 US toy line, and I didn't list it, I didn't show it, include it in your list. I'd love to see it. I'm looking forward to a couple hundred top 10 lists. I'm going to do all the work to compile it. It's going to be a lot of fun. Like, subscribe. Hanger out.